Longlegs is a 2024 horror thriller supernatural suspense film. It really covers a gamut of genres, and it stars Michael Monroe and Nicolas Cage, actually produced by his production company Saturn Films and distributed by Neon Pictures. And it is honestly the talk of the town this past weekend, which honestly quite surprised me. There's been a really big marketing push for it on YouTube, with it being, a trailer for really any movie you click on. It's the new Raid Shadow Legends of movie trailers, and I wasn't quite sure what to think going in. I kind of avoided the trailers and would click skip as often as possible because I was intrigued, and I wanted to know as little about this film going in as I could, and well, I've seen it, so welcome back to Words of Paradise. I'm your host, Leon Idle, and let's talk spoiler-free about Longlegs. Now, Nicolas Cage, I said, stars in the film, and you wouldn't know that because he does play the titular serial killer Longlegs. If you don't know, the film is about a serial killer and an FBI agent who is out to find this serial killer who seems to be using very possibly supernatural methods of killing his victims, and this, to this point, 30 years later, has not been caught. It almost has a Death Note vibe to it, if you're familiar with the Death Note anime. Mind you, the anime, not the god-awful live-action anime. But the point is, yes, Nicolas Cage, you would not know it was him. I found myself wondering throughout the entire movie who played this character because he was giving me very, how do I want to describe it? The Dark Knight Heath Ledger vibes. It was almost as, hey, take the Dark Knight Heath Ledger and put him in a legitimate, serious, dramatic horror film. And then we come to find out it's Nick Cage, and I was blown away. The makeup work done on him to make him not look like Nicolas Cage, that's going to deserve an award all on its own. I was blown away to find that out. And then Michael Monroe is the starring role. She's the main actress, the main FBI agent who is trying to track down this serial killer. I cannot be as nice to her. She, I'm going to be real, in my opinion, completely fails at her job of being the lead actress in this role. I get what they were trying to go for. They're trying to make her this shy, awkward, a bit disturbed agent, so she's going to have some very rough dialogue sections with other characters in the film, other FBI agents. But the problem is, when you're acting, you want to come off as natural, and at no point in the entirety of the film did her performance feel natural. It felt like somebody trying to be awkward and shy and a little bit strange or messed up in the head. Now, again, points for effort. I see what they're trying to do, and frankly, it could have been the directing that caused this, although I have a suspicion that no, we can blame the lead actress because nobody else in the film had this problem. In fact, the supporting cast are excellent, every single one of them, but if your main lead isn't carrying the film in a way that makes you gravitate towards them, I can see this being a struggle for some. In fact, I can see this movie being incredibly divisive for a lot of reasons. Now, I do want to say, the cinematography, brilliant, top-notch. I love seeing films like this. I love seeing films that actually take the art of movie making seriously. They consider it just that, a true art. This is not your Marvel schlock or your Star Trek schlock or Star Wars or any of these other big budget movies that are made by committee on assembly lines just to get something out that they hope will make $1 billion. No. This was made with love and care. This is a handcrafted for less than $10 million, by the way. The budget is under $10 million, which is bananas, especially considering I'm recording this as of Sunday evening, getting just out of the theater, and it's already raked in almost $23 million. Now, for those of you that know how to do your box office math, it needs about $30 million to break even. You got your $10 million in production costs, give or take $10 million for marketing, and then give or take theaters taking 1/3 of the cut, for ticket sales. So yeah, you're going to be looking at $25 to $30 million to break even, and just in one weekend, it's already there for a film that, first of all, again, less than $10 million budget. Like, we're talking about Godzilla -1 numbers of production. That is, I can't even begin to describe how amazing what they got done with that budget was. The sets are mind-blowing. The cinematography, the score isn't really there. It goes for more of an atmospheric vibe. Think of if Breath of the Wild was a horror film, but that really works. I like a lot of what this movie did in terms of the way it looked, the aesthetic of the film. It sets a very, very good vibe when you're talking about, hey, I'm noticing there aren't cell phones. There aren't really TVs. It's set in the mid-90s. but it's got a very down-home aesthetic to where, yeah, it's the 90s, but it's like backwoods hillbilly 90s where they may as well still be stuck in the 60s. Like, that level of, it's actually very similar to The Devil All the Time, starring Tom Holland, if you remember that film on Netflix. You know, that film took place in the 60s, but you really felt like it was the 30s, because they're in, like, backwoods Tennessee, where, yeah, the Midwest ain't exactly progressed very far yet. You get a very similar feeling with this, and I gotta say, from just a purely aesthetic, visual point of view, the movie does everything I want it to. That being said, the marketing did make it seem a lot more like a horror film than it actually is. It's very much more of along the lines of like Silence of the Lambs, which, yes, Silence of the Lambs is a horror film, and this is also a horror film, but it's a very procedural, detective, dramatic film first, with horror elements, and the horror elements that are there are done to mixed effect. I think part of any good horror movie is going to be keeping your audience in suspense, keeping them guessing, and there are suspenseful moments in this film. In fact, a lot of the suspense in this film is very natural and well crafted. The story, on the other hand, is honestly incredibly predictable. There's a certain event that happens maybe within the first 10 minutes of the movie, and if you've seen it's movies in general, you already know how the film is going to end, which was a major letdown. As the film progressed, it actually started taking some twists and turns I didn't see coming, to the point where I was like, oh, maybe I'll be wrong about the ending. Maybe they're going to bait and switch us in a positive way. Bait and switch is used as a negative a lot of the time lately, and no, there can be positive bait and switch, like, you know, the fifth, not the Fifth Element, the Sixth Sense. Yeah, no, this did end up going for the sort of generic ending that I thought was coming, which was rather unfortunate. Also, in the third act, there is quite a large exposition dump. 60% of it, if you're an intelligent audience member, you probably already figured out. Now, there are some bits in the exposition dump that is new information, and they do a mixture of showing and telling. It's not just telling, but at the end of the day, I still don't think it's very effective. What is effective is the opening scene of the film. I'm not gonna ruin it, but let me just say, you heard me give praise to Late Night with the Devil for things like its aspect ratio and being able to really just put you in the vibe of the time period that movie is set in. This film does a very similar trick, and they use it throughout the film. It's done in the opening scene, like I mentioned, but then it's done at various points throughout the film to great degree. Again, it really just puts you in the mindset of, this is a movie trying to replicate a certain time period, and it's done to an expert degree. But we gotta talk about the main reason I have a massive problem with this film. Because it relies so heavily on the main character being an FBI agent. She is a terrible, I mean, she is an awful FBI agent. So in the second scene, again, I'm trying to be as spoiler-free as I can, but in the second scene, they are, hunting a criminal. Longlegs doesn't really come into the picture yet. This is just a sort of setup to let you know what she does for the FBI. So they're hunting a completely different criminal, and she makes so many awful rookie mistakes. She doesn't clear corners when she walks in through the door. She doesn't look around, check to the sides. You know, she just sort of runs in guns a-blazing. She doesn't call for backup. And okay, you could say, let's chalk that up to her being inexperienced, and maybe this is one of her first cases or something, so she's not. First of all, I would disagree with that, because if this is one of your very first assignments, you're fresh out the academy, your training is on your mind, you're not lazy with your job yet, you're definitely going to be clearing corners, you're definitely going to be not going in alone, because that's not part of procedure. You would be calling for backup, especially since the opening scene shows us there's like 8 to 12 people working this case. Why would you not radio for backup if you're alone and you're sure that there's a violent criminal within a very enclosed space with you? You didn't have to go into the enclosed space. So yeah, immediately I had a problem with her character, but thought, okay, maybe they're going to use that as a point of development later on. They're going to show her getting better at her job. No. In fact, she gets so much worse. There's a point in time in the film where you find out there might be a massive conflict of interest between her and this case. And rather than her being taken off the case or her being removed from the case, they let her go forward with it. In fact, letting her go forward with it to an insanely conflict of interest degree, to the point where it has negative consequences for other FBI personnel. You can only suspend your disbelief so much. And in a film that's trying really hard to be a gritty, realistic horror film with some supernatural elements, again, a la a more supernatural version of Silence of the Lambs, Silence of the Lambs has a very dark and gritty, real feel to it. So for them to not take her, if they had just made minor changes, such as, let's take this main character off the case, but she feels so strongly and emotionally connected to it that she decides to pursue the case anyway, or if instead of being an FBI agent, maybe she was a journalist, making some sort of change to where it wouldn't be an affront to very obvious policy, that would have saved a large portion of this film. And then when you get to the very end of the movie, again, there's some very, very rookie mistakes that maybe this is speaking as somebody that's had a little bit of hand in working law enforcement, not for a very long time or whatnot, but I don't even think you need that. I think a lot of individuals who've just seen other movies that talk about the FBI or the police or the army, or have some sort of understanding of general policy and procedure, would know that, hey, she screwed up here. There could have been multiple lives saved. There could have been multiple outcomes that are negative that didn't happen if she just done things a smart and rational way. You don't need to be a trained officer of any sort of law enforcement to know that this was just a dumb mistake. And maybe there's a reason for that. Again, that might be part of the character, is that she is so entrenched in this case that she's letting herself get sloppy. She's making these improper moves. But if that's the case, well, then her higher-ups should see these failures and see there's some negative things going on with the case because of her failures and pull her off of it, let alone, again, the conflict of interest. It just does a very poor job of showing a case, again, with the supernatural elements, that you could take all the supernatural aspect out of it and you're still going to have just someone who's bad at their job. And it's very hard to root for a main character that is bad at their job. I wish I could. I want to love this movie. This movie is a movie that exists on great ideas, but terrible execution. Or if not terrible, maybe terrible is too strong a word. Sloppy execution. That being said, I do still recommend it because I want to see more films like this made. I would like to see this film made, but a bit more competently, with a bit tighter writing. You could tell they put all the writing into the emotional aspect, into the drama of it, which is great. I like feeling emotionally and dramatically invested. But if you're going to ruin my suspension of disbelief by screwing up in other aspects, maybe those other aspects should have been given just as much, if not more care. That being said, again, $10 million budget. That's something to be incredibly proud of. They were able to get this done on such a small amount of money. The fact their heart was in the right place, the fact that you can tell they care about the art of cinema. I still really recommend the film. I'm not saying it's a great experience, and frankly, it's going to be incredibly divisive just because of the nature of how the storytelling is done. But that's what a good film should be. That's what I want to see, rather than, again, the Star Wars or Marvel schlock, because I want to see films that make people talk and have discussions. By the time you're seeing this video, I'll have been on probably multiple live streams talking about this film due to a lot of us running in the same film circles, and I can guarantee you we're probably going to get into screaming matches over what we took away from the film and the filmmaking, the whole nine, and that's a good sign. That's a sign of a healthy artistic medium, rather than us just throwing a fit about culture war nonsense. Oh, why was the FBI agent black? Things like that. Those are the little nonsensical things that were not at the forefront of anyone's mind watching this movie. It was just a well-crafted, well-intentioned, but sloppy film that I think we will get more of. I don't know how this movie got greenlit. Probably the low budget. Let's have more of that, please. Like this, that was excellent. So while it definitely wasn't no Late Night with the Devil, which is easily my numero uno film of the year thus far, and it's very difficult to recommend seeing the film on its own merit if you're a fan of strong storytelling. If you just want to see art, film being taken seriously again, and support a project that definitely does enough to be called good but not great, then yeah, I think Longlegs absolutely deserves your dollar. And for those of you that aren't horror fans, it's really tough to call this a horror movie. Like I was saying, it is very much a drama and detective film first, with horror elements, which again works to mix effect. It depends on how well versed you are with the horror genre, whether you're going to see the tropes coming or not. But if I had to give this the film a rating out of 10, I think this deserves 6 bad FBI reprimands out of 10. But post-editing Leon here, I think my number rating was a bit too harsh. I do stand by everything I said in that video and in the lead-up. However, I don't think that quite justifies a 6, so I think we're going to change that to a 7.5. Thank you very much. That's been my thoughts. I want to hear yours in the comments down below, especially if you have seen the film, so let me know. Hit that subscribe button. I'm a nerdy news channel. I bring you nerdy news every day, unless I'm doing the odd review like this one every now and again. And of course, you can always check me out when covering things like anime, movies, music, Magic the Gathering, you name it. Find me on Instagram at wordsofparadise_Leon and become a member for $4.99 a month. You can join the Discord, choose the articles I go over on a day-to-day basis, choose the videos I react to on my Friday night live streams, and of course, get involved in a discussion with over 80 other vital idols. It is a bright, beautiful, glowing, vibrant community that I cannot wait to grow even further because we do care about diversity, but only one kind of diversity. Diversity of thoughts. And if that's up your alley, join the Discord, hit the subscribe button, and until next time, it is all here in the Nerdosphere. This has been Words of Paradise.